So if you got the crosshairs, you got the laser, you put it right on my chest, I'll take full responsibility. I'm raising the stake right now. If this is a poker game, I'm shoving my chips to the middle of the table. I'm raising the ante. Anybody wants in, get in. Anybody wants out, get out. Okay? This team is going to the playoffs.
Of course, that was former New York Giants head coach Jim Fassel in the 2000 season when he pushed all of his chips to the middle of the table and pushed the Giants into the playoffs and into the Super Bowl. This is Tim on the Online Big Blue, bringing you the best of New York Giants sports talk and entertainment. We're going to do a second show today, kind of more of a somber note because former New York Giants head coach Jim Fassel, of course, has passed away at the age of 71. He coached the Giants from 97 to 2003. In my mind, he is probably one of the most underrated head coaches in New York Giants history. I never felt he got a fair shake to get another job as a head coach. I mean, I don't really know what and I followed his career. I don't know what the circumstances were that did not allow him to move forward. I mean, he took the position with the Ravens in 2004 as an senior offensive consultant. He was then their coordinator from 2005 to 2006. Of course, he was part of the Las Vegas Locomotives for the UFL. But as a Giant head coach, he's going to be remembered for a couple things. And I remember Jim Fassel fondly. I really do. I was actually working at ESPN, where I worked for a couple years before I started working for Tampa Bay. I also worked at Telemundo in their sports division. So I got to meet him briefly, shook his hand, had a 30-second conversation in 2000 at the Raymond James Stadiums for the Super Bowl. I always thought he was an underrated figure. I mean, he had the first season in '96. He was more to me than the bridge between Dan Reeves and Tom Coughlin. '97, he went 10-5 and won. They were first in the NFC East. We lost that game, the wild card game in Minnesota. '98, he was 8-8. '99, 7-9. Then, of course, there was the historic 12-4 season, Super Bowl season. Lost that, of course, to the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens had a defense second to none that year. If I rank the all-time greatest defensives that I saw, I go 85 Bears, 86 Giants, 2000 Baltimore Ravens. Then they followed up, of course, as most teams do in the year after the Super Bowl, even the losers, they were 7-9. Then they went to 10-6 the next year and again lost in that debacle in San Francisco, up 24 points in the third quarter. How we still lost that game, I don't know. And yes, that was a penalty at the end. But you know what? You blow a 24-point lead. You can't sit there and cry that there was a penalty on the game-winning field goal. Then he, of course, dropped to 4-12, and then he was gone from the Giants' radar. And it's one of those things. Like I said, he was, I grew up in the Parcells era. I lived through Ray Hanley, Dan Reeves. I even go back a little bit further, but I'm not going to get into the 70s. But Fassel was just a guy. He was a guy's guy. He was an epitome of a Giants coach. He had his ups, he had his downs, but he always faced the music. He had some issues, like I said, in his career with winning in the playoffs and winning the big game. And I do think that 49er game haunted him probably for his entire career. But I think his passing, in my mind, his passing should be we should celebrate his Giants career and give him the credit that he deserved. And I think we should have done that when he was still around because, like I've said, I've always said it before. I think Jim Fassel was a good coach, the right coach for the Giants at that time. I think he was more than a bridge coach between Reeves. I mean, he was more than that between Reeves and Coughlin. He was also coach of the year in '97. But like I said, he's always going to be remembered for two things: getting blown out and then blown out in the Super Bowl and losing to the 49ers. But like I said, for those that don't know him and aren't old enough to remember that day when he pushed all of his chips to the middle of the table, they were talking about firing him. And then he just came out and said, "Listen, we're going to make the playoffs. This is what we're doing." And then what they do, they go 12-4. There are guarantees in sports going back to like Joe Namath and Mark Messier. And to me, Fassel ranks third in New York sports lore with that speech. He will be missed, of course, by the Giants organization. He'll be missed by his family. He'll be missed by the fans. And I do think we all should just take a moment of silence and gratitude for a coach who had his ups, who had his downs in his Giant career, but he was Big Blue, true and true. And again, this is Tim with Online Big Blue, bringing you the best of New York Giants sports talk and entertainment. And as always, if you can subscribe, you bring that bell, you can know what that means. That'd be awesome.